I don't
That
test my
gets a
code in
retweet.
production. Or no, I don't test my code. When I do, it's in production. However that shirt goes.
All right, we're live. Awesome. Let's get this freight train rolling, huh? Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin podcast, your source for IT news, commentary, and a healthy dose of paranoia. All right, welcome everyone to episode 28, not 27, right? 28.
You're correct, sir.
I'm your host, Nate. Joining me from his pink missile silo is...
On mute.
He's on mute.
We have another person? There's no pink missile silo.
He refuses to admit that he's in a pink room.
The room is not pink. Your eyes checked.
Get your camera checked. That's what it is. So as usual, that's Jason. And our new addition, Dustin. Soon I won't be able to introduce you as our new addition anymore.
I'll just be the old edition.
You'll be just another guy that hangs out on Iron Sysadmin. Then we'll have to add someone else, to keep things fresh. And then we'll have to have, elections to see who stays on the show. It worked for Survivor and every other reality TV show since.
What's the prize?
Oh, clearly it's Monday. We're off the rails already.
We are
Always.
Indeed. All right. So you may have heard that there was yet another mass shooting. And apparently the gunman had an Apple device.
Yeah.
Slashdot reports that, who is it this time? Who's asking for it this time? Just authorities. Authorities in Texas have served Apple with a search warrant. This is the same deal from the San Bernardino, right? Shooting from what, 2 years ago? Is it now? A year ago?
It's been 2 years. Wow.
Yeah, they're making a big deal of it. They do it for every single shooting. There's thousands of these things they've been sending Apple, and everybody else. If you have a phone and it's locked and they want access to it, they send an unlock request.
No, I won't say it. DRM request. Takedown. DMCA.
Yep.
Someone, and I don't see it mentioned here in this particular article, but there was somebody was mentioning that there could actually be federal backing to force Apple into doing something about the encryption problem.
But they tried that before. The actual problem of encryption, not necessarily the single case.
Yeah, right. Just because there's yet another, and whatever. I don't know what makes this case any different than all the others, but maybe change in administration. No, this can't be the first time this has happened since Trump was elected, can it?
No,
it
it's happened. It's happened a number of times.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's happening again. Surprise, surprise.
What's old is new.
I don't know. Maybe I misunderstand the problem here. So, I'm fine with supporting authorities to try to further an investigation of a case, but isn't this basically impossible? Isn't that the whole point of encryption?
Well, that's
without
the theory.
backdooring whatever algorithm they use to encrypt, right? So I guess they could intentionally backdoor it, but I don't know that would help with an existing encrypted phone.
No, it wouldn't.
I think it's ethics too. I think the ethics part of it is
Well, absolutely, I agree with that. It's an ethics thing, right? So it's a twofold problem. One is encryption is not meant to be broken. That's the whole point of encryption. It's not supposed to be that I can just change a few bits and all of a sudden it's decrypted.
Sure.
Right? And two, it's a huge privacy concern because even if it's only the authorities can unlock this phone without your knowledge, we all know that it's only a matter of time before someone figures out how authorities do it, and then anybody can do it.
Right.
So, yeah,
look, if you want, the last time they did this, they found some sort of a it looks like they use some sort of a exploit to get into it.
Mhm.
But you know, who knows
Yeah,
if that's been fixed? So
they went to some third party that was able to get into it. And they paid some ridiculous amount of money.
right.
They never
Which is a
did
whole nother
say if they
conversation.
actually found anything on the phone, though, did they?
I think you're talking about the what is that? The San
The San
Bernardino.
Bernardino one.
My understanding was that they found nothing. Like
Yeah.
there was really nothing of interest.
I didn't hear anything specifically that said so, but I heard it was like $600,000 or $900,000 they paid for it to get it
That
unlocked.
doesn't surprise me.
Who knows?
It was a ton of money.
Look, every one of these, like, what makes people think that you're going to have something on your phone that's going to be oh so incriminating versus the rest of your life?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, and
I mean,
even if they get the phone unlocked, like chances are, like say he was a member of some terrorist cell or whatever, the communications that they have are going to be encrypted on top of that.
no, I mean, and this one in particular, this guy was just a crackpot. I mean,
Yeah. I know. I'm saying, if he were, and if they found that on the phone, like there's probably a good chance that whatever it is that he has on his phone, he either erased or was also encrypted in some other way, right?
No, I don't think there's I don't think they would find anything on this phone.
No, I don't think they will either. I'm trying to throw possibilities into the mix here that would actually legitimize them trying to get in data out of the phone.
So
I think they'll have multiple hurdles to overcome.
Let's take it to an actual, like terrorist that was doing something. Something a little more than what appears to be some mentally ill person who got a hold of a gun.
Right.
In the case of a terrorist, all right, great. So your iPhone is encrypted. If you're that concerned about things and you're supposed to be all super secret and everything, would you be storing anything on your phone? I mean,
no, that's what I'm saying.
No.
Use something like Signal or Semaphore or whatever, something that expires messages after a time.
Yeah. So, remember we talked those months ago at this point, that episode of Breakthrough that Jason Street was on?
Yeah.
Part of that episode that didn't include him, but included like a side plot, not a side plot, but a side story where these journalists that were communicating with a terrorist cell, they were basically trying to work their way in to then report whatever orders they got out to authorities. And one of the things they were showing was some of the communication between, the person they were reaching out to within the terrorist cell, they were receiving orders from, and themselves. And they kept making this comment that said, "Oh, he's already erased that message." So it makes me feel like what they do is they'll send you a message, wait till they're sure you've seen it, and then delete it, so that even if there were something to find, it would have already been deleted. Right? I mean, face it, these, like, you might think that criminals are all stupid, but they're not.
Yeah, but even stupid,
they're not all stupid.
Right, but even stupid criminals can delete an SMS message.
Right.
Now,
well,
in that case, it's stored on the telecom servers. But I mean, regardless, criminals aren't dumb.
No.
But something like Signal or Wire or something, right? They're supposed to be privacy-aware applications. Your messages, if they're stored anywhere, are supposed to be encrypted. And I would think that if you delete them from your device, they're probably also deleted on the service, right? So it's not an SMS. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I feel
a lot of those.
The slightest bit of attempting to cover your tracks would make that phone useless to authorities.
Right.
Absolutely.
Even if they could get into it.
Unless, of course, you're incorporating some really old standards, like they did what they approved wrong with the ISIS people. They were saying they were communicating over encrypted channels, and they were using like really weak ciphers and algorithms, and they ended up saying that, oh yeah, we could definitely, figure this out very easily. But to a degree, it helped them because nobody really uncovered it until later on.
Right. But let's think about, I mean, if you look at just this article, investigators are hoping to gain access to his digital photos, which are stored in iCloud and shouldn't be that big a deal.
Yeah,
Messages,
two-factor.
Messages, which I mean, it depends
iCloud.
on what it is. You know, again, iCloud may have some of that. The encrypted, you know, the phone's not going to give you access to it. You know, it may be SMSs. Calls, I wonder where would you find?
Yeah, where could you possibly
calls?
get that data from?
Only on the phone, clearly.
Drawing a blank.
Videos, again, you know, photos, videos, that stuff could be elsewhere. Social media passwords. I'm not entirely certain why you need those. Can't you just?
Well, I could wager why they would want access to his social media.
Sure.
Not that they would need his phone to do it.
Right. Because you can just send one of those little pieces of paper that they sent to Apple direct to Facebook, and I'm sure Facebook will bend over backwards to give you access. It
could be that the phone, since it's the central hub of most people's lives, is the easiest way for them to gain access to all of these things at once.
Yes. So sending a sending a search warrant to Apple, who has jumped up and down and screamed and yelled that they're not going to help in the past, is going to be the easiest way to get there.
We're not going to do this. We're going to send you another one. I mean, and for all we know, they did send it to all these other places. They did send, you know, orders to the phone company and the and Facebook and Twitter and whoever else, right? For all we know, that's all in the works too, and this is the only one that hit the news.
Oh, it probably is all in the works, but you know, they said the magic Apple word, and
you know, they said Apple, and they said decrypt this phone, and now it's on the headlines, and all we're doing is contributing to the hype. So let's move on.
Yep. All right. And the hype cycle.
So, do you guys run Firefox?
Yes.
I do.
You may have noticed an update if you've updated it within the past week or two.
I've been on the beta, so I noticed this a while ago when
I forgot
a bunch of the stuff I had just stopped working.
You beta test all the things, and then we wonder why you have trouble connecting to the Hangout session.
I didn't have any trouble connecting.
Oh no, that's right. You were having a problem with my Nextcloud Calabora last time around, weren't you?
Was I?
Yeah. We were blaming your browser because neither of us were having trouble.
That's true.
Back me up here.
I don't remember.
I vaguely remember that. I am now running Quantum, and I was very excited to have the new shiny icon. And I said to Jason, I said, "Wow, this is cool." He goes, "What?" It's like,
"What? I've been running it for months."
Exactly.
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, this is awesome." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, there's this new version that does all these neat things." I'm like,
yeah.
And I looked and I had it, and I'm like,
and you're that I got that 2 months ago.
Yeah,
it was tripe. It was horrible garbage for the first 2 months. Now it's usable. Now you've got it. Good.
No, you know, I mean, you know, I've been running the Firefox betas for a long time now, and
years.
To be honest, I never
when we were still working together.
Yeah, I never really have a problem. It usually just everything just works.
Yeah.
This one hurt a little bit because it disabled a bunch of extensions that I had been using for years. But
so apparently this is like a ground up rewrite. Mm-hmm. This is like the biggest overhaul Firefox has seen in years. So a lot of extensions stopped working.
Yeah, including some extensions they wrote.
Yeah, right.
which is a little annoying.
I didn't see anything that I use frequently go away, but really the only extensions I use frequently are things like uBlock and LastPass, and they must have been on the ball because they came right along. I don't think I lost anything.
So did Ghostery and Privacy Badger. They worked pretty flawlessly.
Yeah. So
Down them all is not working though.
Look, my Terry Pratchett plugin still works. I'm happy.
Your Terry Pratchett plugin, huh?
Yeah, it's what the hell is it called?
What does it do?
All the things.
It is GNU Terry Pratchett. It displays the X clacks overhead in clack semaphore. If you don't read Terry Pratchett and you don't know about the books, it's not going to make sense. But
right, it doesn't.
It's a tribute to Terry Pratchett, and it was pretty brilliant. So,
well, good. So the reason I included the article was not just because Firefox received an update and I figured that that's worth talking about. It's because while many people that I know jumped off the Firefox ship and right onto Chrome, I mean, over the past couple of years. I mean, I know people that pretty much exclusively use Chrome. I've never fully left Firefox. And part of that is because I loved how Firefox was squashing Internet Explorer back in the day, as you may remember. And I still saw them as the underdog for years, and I just kept using them. And then when Chrome came along, I don't know, it felt too popular.
Okay, the fact that I cannot run Chrome without it whining and crying that I will not log in makes it a browser I don't want.
You could run Chromium instead, which strips a lot of that out.
That's what I do.
That's extra work.
Yeah, so being that I am
Wimps.
already pretty integrated into the Google ecosystem, I don't mind logging into Chrome because Google knows everything about me anyway at this point. I know that's a terrible stance to take, but it is what it is. But what I've always liked,
Go ahead.
What I've always liked about Firefox was that they're created by a nonprofit, and they're committed. They're committed to open standards on the web, and those two things,
Agreed.
I really like about Firefox.
Are huge. And, yeah, I'm the same way. That's one of the reasons why I like running it too.
Yeah. So the fact that they claim that they're not only as fast as, but possibly faster than Chrome now, which was everyone's draw to Chrome, that it was so much faster than Firefox, really makes me happy.
Me too. It's good to see them be thriving, because I know, like, what was it, a year ago or 2 years ago, they weren't sure how they were going to meet their needs for funding. Remember the whole search engine switch between Google and Yahoo and
Yep.
all of that debacle. That might have been a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, I remember when it happened in the browser. I wasn't sure why it happened, and then I quickly switched it back to Google because that's a better search engine.
Well, I went a step further. I switched to DuckDuckGo, and I've been happy ever since.
Really? I don't know that I've ever really used DuckDuckGo.
It was hard in the beginning. It was kind of a pain in the ass in the beginning, but it's gotten a lot better. It's actually like, I use it everywhere. ddg.gg.
Okay.
Even on my mobile phone.
Nice,
I can't switch off of Google, because if I do that, then Google won't have my information, and
they'll have it anyways. It's all about cookies, man.
Yeah, so I mean, this actually, the Quantum update actually convinced me to finally install Firefox on my phone, which I had done a while ago, and it was just, it seemed like it wasn't ready yet on the phone. It was slow and it was clunky and whatever. So I was just using Chrome because that's what comes with, Android. But now I'm using Firefox, and it's actually a pretty pleasant experience on the phone. So if any of you did try it at the time that I did and found it to be lacking, give it another go. It works pretty well.
I have a very important question. Since Firefox did a complete overhaul, is the Tor browser now going to have a complete overhaul as well? That's based off of the Firefox.
Maybe.
Wasn't it last week we talked about the hole in the Tor browser that revealed people's identity?
That's pretty good.
So we can hope.
Yep.
One can always hope.
So if you switched away from Chrome or switched away from Firefox to Chrome, switch back. It's awesome. I do like it. The new look, the new feel, it is faster. Some of the new effects and whatnot for the tabs are very sleek, and
they're cool. Yeah.
It just feels very well put together. I don't know. I like it.
As do I. For you and I,
Nate,
it's new and we like it. Jason,
it's new. Yeah, he's like, that's 2 months ago.
I was using Firefox before it was cool.
Before it was cool. Now, what you need to do is you need to take that ponytail you've been growing and tie it up into a man bun.
You said the word man bun. Oh boy.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Anyways.
Now we can move on to the article you've been waiting for. Tell us how has the experience been with you uploading all of your nudes to Facebook?
All right. So for those of you, I don't know, how do I even approach this?
Very delicately.
I don't know how many of our viewers are familiar with the term revenge porn, but the concept is simple. You're dating someone, you're bitter about a breakup, you take all those nude pictures that you took of your girlfriend or boyfriend, and you upload them to social media to get back at them.
Don't do that. That makes you an asshole.
Yes, don't do that.
Agreed.
It makes you an asshole. But apparently, now this is old news at this point. You've probably already heard about this, but apparently Facebook has decided they have a solution to this problem. Just upload your naked pictures first before that disgruntled boyfriend or girlfriend does it, and they'll hash them, and they'll make sure that they don't get uploaded again. But only to Facebook, and only on a picture-by-picture basis.
Right. Now, is it picture by picture, or is it like an actual identity of a person? I forget what they're.
Well, so I mean, think about this. If you follow, I mean, that's the way the whole technology was described to me, and I haven't heard anything to the contrary. But basically, if you have a file that meets a certain, once a file is created, you can then get a hash of that file, and you can then use that hash to identify when that file is uploaded, right? Because the hash should be unique per file.
Yes.
Right. So, as far as I know, that's their big secret. That's their big, amazing discovery. We'll get a hash of your naked pictures, and then if anyone tries to upload a file that matches that hash, we won't allow it.
But what if the file is slightly altered? Like,
Hey, you can get around this.
You can't. No, this is flawless.
You couldn't convert it to a different format, or make it a little bit bigger or smaller, or make it black and white, or add a signature to the bottom. There's no way you could possibly do that.
Well.
Anyway, I mean, and this is completely glossing over the fact that you're basically letting Facebook process naked pictures of you.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, it's even worse than that, because if you go to Engadget, and I will put the link here in the show notes, Violet Blue wrote a nice article about what she went through trying to find out exactly what Facebook was trying to do and how they were going to do it. And as it turns out, getting that information apparently is not simple.
Facebook is very secretive about just about everything that they do.
It's not just that they're secretive, it's that depending, like, she asked multiple times and got multiple different answers. So the whole, I guess what's consistent is you'll upload the nudes via Messenger to some sort of a bot. That bot will then pass it on to the Facebook revenge porn team. And then the picture needs to get reviewed by a human. Now, it may or may not be blurred. So one of the questions that was asked was, well, what are you blurring? And they said, well, we're going to blur all the bad bits. But if there's not a human looking at it, how do you know what the bad bits are? Yahoo found out a long time ago that you can't just scan for colors.
Well,
right?
Hold on. So if they
you can't.
If they really think that they can somehow blur all the bad bits, why don't they just add that to the whatever you're using to upload the images, and then it won't matter anyway?
Because then it's not gonna have the actual hash of the real file.
No. I mean, ignoring all of this, ignore all of the other stuff you just discussed, and instead, when someone uploads a picture that appears to have the right tones to be a naked person, it blurs out the bad bits. Then your revenge porn is going to be nothing more than a blurry picture.
But that's, I mean, how do I know if it's revenge porn versus something that somebody wants to put up there?
Guess what?
By the
Nudity is illegal on Facebook. Period.
Well, I mean, I think you're using the word illegal wrong, but...
Okay, nudity is against Facebook's terms of service. Period.
Yeah. I'm sure that's working out well for everybody.
By the way,
whether it's revenge porn or not, you're not supposed to put naked pictures on Facebook.
Well, what's the fun in that?
What's the fun in that?
People use it for that. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, it just.
I know.
From what I understand of how Facebook filters things, it's not an easy task to put your naked pictures on Facebook, because they don't want them
in a private manner.
Well, I don't know. Maybe in a private manner, maybe through Messenger or something, you could make that happen. But But like public posts and groups and stuff, they're all very heavily filtered and monitored. Like there have been people that have gotten posts taken down just because they're pro-gun, or pro something that Facebook doesn't agree with, or if you're advertising alcohol or tobacco use or something, I think Paul just went off on this. Don't you remember, Jason? You probably heard the episode.
Because he has a little behind, so
he has his cigar podcast as well,
right?
And he can't advertise it on Facebook because they say that it promotes tobacco use. Well, of course, it's a podcast about cigars.
Duh. Yeah, exactly.
Like they're able, they figure that out. Like if the banner has a cigar in it, they block the damn thing. But anyway, My point is, right, if you're going to try to shame your ex and upload pictures of them, Facebook probably isn't the best platform to do it on. There's 1,000 other ways to do it, and just Facebook trying to block it is not going to make a damn bit of difference.
Well, all right. So we can look at the positives too. Facebook is trying to help with this problem.
They're doing it in a terrible way, though.
Or potentially a Facebook engineer pitched the most wonderful job in the world and is trying to, make that come to fruition.
I get to review all the naked pictures on the internet. Yay!
That was horrible, but okay. It was a joke, people. I don't want to
imagine the job summary for that. Oh yeah, job description.
Can you identify naked women in a picture? Yes, you're hired.
How about men?
Well, so the funny part is that the reviewer, according to the couple of articles that talked about this, there's allegedly going to be one reviewer, one person at Facebook who reviews all of these. So either this guy or gal is never going to sleep ever, or they're not expecting this to last very long and they're not going to get a lot of pictures. But I mean, if you think about it, like they're trying to help, they're trying to do the right thing. That's at least a positive. I think they're going about it the wrong way, but
I just feels like there's so many holes in his plan, and it's so limited. It's limited to a single service. Sure, right. It's a popular social network, but I mean, I guess it would apply to Instagram as well, which is also a popular photo sharing network. But
maybe
I don't know.
But
it just feels like too little and too much of a privacy concern,
right,
to really have any positive benefit. Who's going to do this? Who would willingly upload their naked pictures of themselves to a team at Facebook to review just because they're afraid their boyfriend might do it for them?
Never ask. Right. Well, I mean, that's something.
I can't imagine this being popular.
That's something that Violet Blue actually pointed out. So women who are going to be so incredibly like embarrassed and ashamed of having those photos out there are not going to upload that to Facebook.
Like, how do they think that's going to work?
Right. You know that somebody's going to have to see it in order for them to classify it, because they're right. Like Facebook is exactly right. If nobody reviews this, people are going to upload stuff that's not theirs, or they're going to upload things that they want blocked for other reasons. It's just,
right.
It'll get abused.
Right.
But then, I mean,
like pictures of cigars.
Right. At the same time, you've now given Facebook your nudes. So how are they keeping them safe? Now, they allege that they're going to take the hash of the photo and then they're going to get rid of it, except that they also said that they can't get rid of it because they're going to have to keep it for other reasons. Like, there's all this back and forth, and their story isn't exactly straight either.
Right. I mean, who protects that data once it's there, and who makes sure that it's not being used poorly? Who makes sure it doesn't get stolen later?
Right.
Because that never happens, right? Hello, Equifax.
No comment.
It's totally impossible that you would have uploaded your data to some service, knowingly or unknowingly, in the case of Equifax, and someone else comes along and steals that data. That's just impossible, right? Especially when there's a treasure trove.
Trevor.
I said it.
Sorry.
Of just like random amateur nudes sitting around on a Facebook server somewhere. Someone's going to try to get that.
Right.
It's air gapped. It's all good.
It's air gapped. Yeah, they're all on USB keys under some engineer's
That's what the guy
desk.
does. He takes the USB key, loads it in, waits for the blinker light to stop. He knows it's unmounted, plugs it to the...
All right.
All right.
We're
So
going down a bad road here.
So how about that? How about that shiny phone?
Right. So this is from the Hacker News. So there's Android. Well, I guess it's a string of Android devices at this point called the OnePlus. They're like a series of phones. I think there's more than one of them anyway, but they're touted as like an open alternative, I believe, to some of the carrier locked phones. Like they were very popular in some of the developer markets and whatnot. I mean, it was pretty cool. I was actually very happy to see that sort of innovation outside of Google, outside of the big phone manufacturers. The problem is apparently they've come under fire for some pretty nasty apps they've included with Android on their devices, and I got to say this is really disappointing. So I guess the latest one is that there's this logging. They call it OnePlus Log Kit, which logs a whole bunch of nasty things. Maybe not nasty things, but well, yeah, things like GPS location, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, NFC, modem signal, and data logs. Wonder what data logs means.
Could be anything.
Yeah, that could be anything. Data logs. We log some data.
Yeah. On a data-driven world.
Hot and power issue logs. I mean, like some of this looks like normal diagnostic stuff, but GPS location? Hello? That's kind of private. And the way in which the whole thing is just so hidden. Like you have to dial a code on your dialer and then it brings up a menu apparently.
That's the weird part about how it's
star pound 800 pound and then it goes to some special menu. Like this whole thing feels really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Like why have they hidden it? You know
why
what I mean?
hide it via the dialer?
Yeah.
And why is it so easily accessible?
Yeah. It's the whole thing is shady.
I wonder if you were to leverage that like over the emergency lock. You know how like the smartphones you can unlock them and make an emergency call?
Right.
Is that vulnerable?
There was actually an Android exploit a year or two ago that used that. It was a buffer overflow. You could bring up the emergency dialer and then you just fill up the buffer with numbers and then it would crash photos, and the lock screen would go away.
Yeah. Huh? Was that related to the photos one too? Where you could see the photos without unlocking the phone? Or is that a different one?
That may be a different one.
Forget.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess this is hot on the heels of another issue that was found that was like a secret rootkit hanging out in the OnePlus, an Android rooting backdoor. So I have to wonder what the details on that is. I didn't read into that. A lot of times, open phones like this will include the option to enable root. I don't know if that's the case here or not, or if this was like a hidden thing that someone could remotely execute or something. I don't know. The whole thing is just disappointing.
I wonder, I mean, I'm curious whether that software, OnePlus has to be loading the software onto those phones, right?
Surely.
So,
part of the ROM.
So is this something that was compromised, that they snuck in, or is OnePlus putting these on there for a reason?
That's a good question. Possible. It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what's going to get uncovered there. Maybe some of the story about this rootkit would tell us, but like I said, I haven't read about it. So, I mean, it feels like included software. It looks like included software. Whether it was put there nefariously or not, I don't know. Or whether it was just, some engineer said, oh, we need this log data. Let's put it somewhere where it's not easy to get to so people aren't, getting spied on. And now someone found it and it looks terrible. I don't know if that's the case or not. Somebody get an engineer from OnePlus on the phone. We'll interview them.
Have them on the podcast.
Hang on. I think I have one on speed dial.
Okay. Get on that.
I don't.
Get on that.
All right, moving right along.
Windows ASLR security defense whole something. You guys included this. Go.
Not me. I blame the man with the ponytail.
It's the man with the man bun.
Yeah. So I mean, you've been hearing about ASLR for years now, about how they Address space layout randomization. Basically, the memory space is mapped and is in random locations such that if you this blocks a bunch of different attacks that do like buffer overflows and stuff, so that you can't write an exploit that will get into the same memory space every time.
Right. If you guys remember, not long ago we covered one of these that was in the Linux kernel. Might have been 2 months ago. Jason's trying to chug his beer.
Yeah, chug.
How's the beer treating you? That 10%.
That's good.
Good.
Didn't do as much damage as I figured it would.
Well, good.
Anyway, so apparently, according to what this researcher found, system-wide mandatory ASLR on all affected systems enabled by EMIT, which is the Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit in Windows.
Wasn't that decommissioned?
Yeah, it's been replaced, I think, with Windows Defender,
Defender now or something.
Yeah. So that has zero entropy, which means that the randomization isn't quite so random.
Oh, that is a problem.
Yeah. So essentially, it's the same, using the same salt every time, and that, of course, means that you can, in fact, write an exploit.
So you have predictable memory randomization,
right?
Which is quite the opposite of randomization.
Yeah.
Good. That's good.
And as usual, the response to it is, "Oops."
There's been so many crypto bugs lately. I mean, this isn't necessarily crypto, but bugs related to cryptography that were also related to entropy problems and to predictable keys, and wow, it just seemed
collusion.
All of a sudden, it seems like these are all coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, I think. Well, what you often see is somebody does something novel or attacks something that hasn't been attacked in a while, and then everybody else goes, "Ooh, shiny," and attacks it and everything.
Let me go check all of the other crypto things ever that have ever used entropy. Oh, look, this has a problem. That has a problem. No one ever looked here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yep, Windows is holy. Again.
Do you guys miss the days of Adobe Flash Player and its number of vulnerabilities? Oh, hey, we patched all these things, and then like a week later, oh, hey, we patched all these things.
That really kept everyone's attention, didn't it?
No, it's still happening. Nobody cares, though.
I'm just saying, like it's like the new Adobe Flash. I mean, you know,
every crypto is maybe. Hey, wait, maybe the FBI needs to look into whether Apple is using good entropy on their phones.
Without fail, every single time I have to use Flash, it has to update. Every time.
I just don't use it anymore. Mainly because Adobe was happy to abandon Firefox Linux users like a year ago.
Yep.
So there was a point where they stopped updating Flash, and I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'm keeping out-of-date Flash on my machine. So I don't use Flash anymore.
Nate, you're not living very wild. I mean, it's not like it's Java, out-of-date Java. I mean,
yeah, right. It's not like it's out-of-date Java required to access our. Wait, I'm not going to continue.
Back it up.
Back it up. Okay. So ASLR isn't so ASLR, or isn't so R.
ASL.
It's ASL. There you go.
Wait, no.
What? Is Microsoft's going the IRC route?
Yeah. All right. On to more fun with bugs.
All right.
Apparently,
take it away, Dustin. This one's yours.
Go ahead.
Aha. So I finally bring something to the table. I'm worthy for today, for a moment.
Yeah.
So I'm sure many of you are familiar with Intel processors, and you're familiar with the Intel Management Engine, which is a small little bit of hardware that's in most Intel-based devices these days. As an administrator, I think of it, It's that thing that I can use to secure passwords and things like that. And to other people, they're like, what is this annoying thing running in my tray icon? I don't really care about it. Well, that wonderful thing that is there to help you encrypt things, like BitLocker, also maybe use it for password manager security, etc., is actually utilizing part of the CPU that you're running right now in your hardware, and is actually running a operating system that you have no control over.
Yay!
It's running in a space not only that you have no access to, but has access to your files.
Does it have good entropy?
I don't know. Considering it's a closed source operating system, it's hard to say.
We'll never know.
So it's this thing is unreal. It has a full TCP stack, IPv4 and IPv6.
Yep,
it runs Apache. It runs Apache, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right.
What the hell?
Yeah, seriously.
So
you can interact with it.
Oh, here, that's right. It has drivers on it too for USB, mouse, etc. It's got a file system. Like what?
And the scary thing is
this is embedded inside of Intel processors. Is that what we're getting at?
Can you imagine how small the mouse has to be?
What is my mouse for ads? Man.
So according to is it in this article?
Maybe.
Yes. So Google is working on apparently is it in here? I don't know.
They talk about there's a Go version for Linux.
Yeah. So Google is looking to write and replace the that operating system on the CPU across all their chips for a lot of reasons. But if you think about it, how many Intel chips are out there?
Oh,
and they all have this
billions,
and they all have tons and tons and tons of security holes in them. That they
especially the server space. I mean, they really dominate it.
Yeah. So is
this all Intel chips or certain lines or?
It's most Intel chips. The x86, x86, 64. I think all the current stuff. I don't know about the
most modern chips. And look,
it's not like just the Xeons or something. It's like all Intel chips.
I don't have an exact spec sheet, but I think it's most. We can find that out.
Right. So this user space area is responsible for turning silicon on and off and doing a bunch of other stuff. So I mean, it's important. It's quite important.
You're missing a good part though. Oh yeah, it is important on that side of it. I was going to go a different way. Go ahead, continue. I'll add my banter later.
I'm done. Have at it.
Oh,
banter away.
It's interesting. Okay, so I must talk about this. In this article, they bring up a good point. The article from ZDNet. They say that the way this operates, it has access to your passwords. So I'm thinking maybe the passwords that you may store in the management engine software. And they're saying that even if you were to re-image your computer's firmware, or if you leave the computer in an off state, as long as the chip or hardware, I should say, is being powered, it can still potentially change your computer.
Wow.
Somehow. I mean, think about that. The power that has just sitting there idling away that you have no access to. Yet,
and it's just there all the time.
Everything. Yeah,
it's
all the time.
Damn CPU.
You know, the only solution is to buy AMD. I thought I saw their stocks going up.
Now we know why.
Now we know why.
I was a big AMD fan back in the day, but they seem to have lost the war.
Yeah, they're trying. They're trying. I have one in my desktop that I haven't turned my desktop on in a while, but that's a different story.
Well, you should turn it on, and you should ask it if there's a hidden operating system somewhere in the chip.
I don't know. It might break.
Turn it on. The house catches fire. Ah! Sorry, Dustin.
That's a good point. It's liquid cooled.
So
checked it in a while.
So that switching to AMD. I mean, this article will tell you too. Switching to AMD doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have this.
No, you don't know what's running on it.
Yeah, they said the Ryzen processors aren't completely open, so they don't actually know.
Well, I'm screwed.
Good.
Some hardware.
But the proposal that Google has is to switch from Minix to Linux.
For the firmware,
that's faster and is more supportable and
open, but it's still an operating system that we don't have access to running on our CPU.
On 3 cores, those greedy.
That doesn't really change the problem. It just changes the platform the problem runs on. Does it?
I mean, they have more control over if they can replace the firmware, they have control over what's running. So I guess in a way.
But you and I don't.
That's okay.
It changes the problem for Google. It doesn't change it for the rest of us.
Now you see why Intel-based phones are going to be a thing someday.
Yeah, right. Well, so
the backdoor we've always needed.
The tablet I have right here that I use for the soundboard, that does stuff like
Where's
this.
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Yes, Marvin.
That has an Intel chip. I wonder if it has the same Minix running on it or not. I don't know.
It's possible. It's possible and it's fascinating at the same time.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, look at even SIM cards, right? If we're talking about fascinating things, right? SIM cards have a CPU memory, even some type of software, and you would have never thought that a SIM card would serve a purpose. Now you have, another hidden operating system that's part of your life that you don't even know about.
Can you see my little SIM card that I'm holding up? Oh, it's upside down. You can't tell.
It's a micro. Is that from the hat?
Yep, that's from the hat.
Project Phi.
Can you hold it a little closer to the camera so that I can get the data off it?
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to work. There is some sort of an identifier on there that you might be able to use.
New exploit found.
Yeah, if you read these numbers, you'll get the data.
Yeah. But you have to do it through webcam.
TCP over optical?
Don't laugh.
All right, so Minix, it's scary and it's possibly bad.
Thinking of bad things, our next article.
What about this Microsoft and GitHub thing? We promised, folks, this is our last news article for the night. I don't know how we got so many.
Blame the third guy.
Yeah.
Wasting everybody's time.
It's his fault. All right, go. GitHub, Microsoft, something.
I think Fred should take this one. He's the Git artist.
I mean, it's your article, but okay. Apparently, Microsoft decided they were going to use Git for Windows development.
And realized their software was entirely too bloated for Git.
and apparently had trouble stuffing 300 gig of source code into Git.
That's an issue?
What? I mean, how could this possibly be a problem?
So turns out like what Git was probably working just fine. But 300 gigs of source code is a little on the ridiculous side.
It just takes a long time to sync anything when you're moving 300 gig.
Okay, look, does every single developer have to have access to every single line of code for the entire system? That's a little ridiculous.
Yes.
Do you not have teams that are responsible for things?
If you were to break down that code, maybe it would work better.
Repos. Like, what the hell? Anyway, Microsoft, as Microsoft usually does, decided, we'll just fix this using some Microsoft foo. So they created this thing called GVFS, the Git Virtual File System, which takes Git and breaks it. I mean, takes Git and enhances it. So now
Microsoft is making things better, not worse.
Right. So all right, let's take a step back. One of the reasons that you use Git,
I can't. Then I'll be too far from the mic.
One of the reasons that it was designed is that when I check something out from Git, I have a complete copy of the repository, all of it, on my machine locally. I can do whatever I want. Can do all the updates and everything else, and then I can push that to either to other people or back to the main repo or whatever. But you have the entire repo. GVFS,
yes, the whole repo.
Guys are idiots.
Keeping Dustin on task here.
GVFS gives you a metadata, like you check out the metadata of the repo, And the only source code files you have are the ones that you explicitly retrieve, which means you no longer have the entire repo. So if you don't have a connection to the network, you can't continue working. This sort of defeats the whole Git thing.
But who doesn't have access to internet anymore, Jason? It's all about connectivity.
That's
Where's
fine.
my Wi-Fi?
But you also don't have multiple copies of there's a lot of reasons that Git does what it does. So Microsoft came up with this and decided they were going to push it out to open source, and GitHub said, awesome. We are more than happy to serve at the feet of the great Microsoft masters, and has absorbed the changes. And I guess they're looking to get the rest of them into the upstream and get it taken care of. So that's their thing. Microsoft destroying good and wonderful software every day.
Well, it's still enhancing. I would still say it's optional to use it.
True.
Well, it's optional to use it. Of course, if it gets put into the mainline, it's there all the time. But
now in the Spring Creators update, GVFS.
Yeah, I mean, really, do you think that's going to happen? Is it going to go into mainline? I doubt it.
It's a bunch of the updates have apparently been pulled into mainline, so we'll see. The other thing I think is really funny is that they're planning on something called OneDrive placeholders that's going to use the GVFS API.
Tasty.
I don't know. Personally, not a fan of OneDrive. It was pretty horrible.
You're not a fan of cloud services, I think, is what it comes down to.
No. So Box is brilliant. Works great. Dropbox is not bad. It works pretty well. SpiderArc 1, another one that works really well. Even iCloud seems to. I mean, I don't know.
Pretty decent.
I haven't dug into iCloud really deep, but I mean, it stores files. OneDrive.
If you have the subscription, it's great.
Okay, so OneDrive actually segregated everything away. So if I shared a file with Dustin, in order for Dustin to get that file in OneDrive, he had to go to the shared files area to then look at those files. And all of the tools and everything for OneDrive all worked on the main, your individual OneDrive account location itself. And anything that was shared with you wasn't available to those tools at all. So you had all sorts of it's not even corner cases. You'd share a file because we want to collaborate on it, but you couldn't collaborate on it because none of your tools could see the file. It was a little screwed up. So I don't know. Maybe they're getting better. Who knows? But
Google Drive has gotten pretty popular too. I mean, if you want to talk about that stuff,
yeah. If you don't like security,
they've come a long way. They don't believe in security. They don't need it.
I just want to say, folks, if you go back to episode 1 or 2 of this podcast, you'll hear Jason talking about the virtues of OneDrive over Google Drive. So,
No, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, I do remember you telling me how it was so much better than Google Drive.
OneDrive? No.
Yeah.
Box, yes.
No, you weren't using Box yet.
Nah, I think you're wrong.
I'll be right back.
But okay.
I'm gonna go find the episode and listen to it just to be sure.
Yeah. And if you're right, then something's seriously wrong with me, and I need to.
Maybe you had too many drinks that night.
I'm gonna blame it on beer. Absolutely gonna blame it on beer.
It's totally the beer's fault. All right, so I think that covers the news.
Yay, news.
I think. All right.
Press the button.
Press the button. Yay. Push the button, Frank, for any MST3K fans out there.
Play it again, Sam? I don't know.
You're not you've never watched Mystery Science Theater 3000?
I watched a couple of the episodes of the new release. I've seen episodes here or there.
You watched that only because Felicia Day's in it.
I mean,
I know you.
yeah.
I related to her.
Indeed. Second, third,
Kidding.
fourth cousin, maybe.
Yeah, different last names.
I'm still at a loss as to why that's a bad thing.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean,
I
don't know. Anyone who was a fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000 from like the days when it wasn't with Felicia Day, that is a line from the original show, and you should go watch it because they were awesome.
An episode or two long before the reboot, so you know.
Well, I guess this just means that I have to get a sound clip of "Push the Button, Frank" for the soundboard, which I will not do right now because we have more important things to do, like get through the rest of the show. unimportant things, right?
We have the technology. Just pause.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pause the YouTube live feed. Yeah. Everybody, wait. We're gonna we'll be back after I find my soundbite.
Found an 8-minute YouTube video that allegedly has it in there.
Oh, I'm sure it does. It's in the opening for like every single episode of MS33K. Until, yeah, not the opener, but you know, it's in the first 10 to 15 minutes of every episode.
Oh, awesome. Found it.
You found it? Congratulations.
Oh, hey, have you guys been watching the comments? I have not. Jason has.
Indeed, he has.
Don't know what you're talking about. I know nothing.
Right. So anyway, I did a thing since our last recording. We're now on Google Play Podcasts.
Oh.
Ooh.
What does that mean?
It means that if you're an Android or at least a Google services user, you can go to Google Play and search their podcasts for the Iron Sysadmin podcast, and you'll find us. Good stuff, right? I mean, we need to be everywhere.
Oh,
indeed.
Okay.
All the places.
Apparently, we're more everywhere than we were last time.
Yep. And I will say that it was easier to get us listed on Google Play Podcasts than it was to get us listed on iTunes. Because Apple and SSL don't get along very well.
Are you using ASSL?
No, if you use SSL, if you use a cert from any provider that is not one of the well-known commercial CAs, Apple will reject your feed.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because it can't verify the cert. I was using at the time it was Startcom before their problems, and they wouldn't accept that. Then I was using Let's Encrypt, and they wouldn't accept that. So, yeah, I had to come up with a way that they could get to the podcast episodes without HTTPS, and then it would work. So that's what we do now. Yay! You can totally download our podcasts without encryption.
Fancy. That's a strong word these days.
Yeah.
Encryption.
In the clear. It's in the clear.
Completely transparent. Oh man. Okay. Anyways.
So anyway, Google Play Podcasts. We're there now. Yay. So you guys have anything cool going on in the past 2 weeks? Besides Delaware has happened.
See.
Besides Delaware was awesome.
Yes, it was a good time. I will say it was definitely a good time.
Yeah, the videos are starting to hit YouTube already, and I highly recommend checking some of them out.
Yeah, so I do Besides Delaware mainly because it's good for my daughter. It's a very friendly, venue for kids. So I didn't go to any of the talks. But she had a good time.
So Bia's talk is on YouTube now.
Cool.
So this is a 10-year-old giving a talk about how to send secret messages that the teacher can't read, otherwise known as crypto. So she does a crypto talk, and it's pretty good. It's worth watching.
Yeah, I saw her. Well, she gave it at the LV Hackers meetup as sort of a dry run. I don't know if she changed much of it since then. It had a pretty good reception at the LV Hackers meetup. So yeah, I don't know if much would have changed. It was pretty good then. I thought.
Yeah,
I
I don't know what may have changed. It was let's call it quite dramatic. So
quite dramatic. I don't remember it being dramatic.
Oh, drama, acting, and yeah, she runs the gamut. It's actually pretty good.
She's quite the entertainer.
She is a complete ball of energy.
Well, yeah, but good, like focused ball of energy.
Yeah, I don't know if he feeds her like Red Bull in the morning or what, but she is like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that's on a slow day.
Yeah, right. So I'd imagine it was probably good talk. I'll have to look it up. You said they're hitting YouTube. Did your sons get recorded as well?
Yes, it did. I haven't seen that on YouTube yet, but it'll be there.
Did you actually get to sit in and see it, or were you too busy doing show stuff?
Yeah, I had to deliver his costume. So
yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh, that's right. He did say he was going to wear a costume.
Yes, it was. Well, I mean, he came in while I was in one of the meetings for the board, and he happened to be in that costume because it was Halloween, and
right.
So he showed off to everybody on the board call and said, "If I promise to wear this, will you approve my talk immediately?" And well, I mean, the only answer to that is,
of
yeah.
course,
yeah.
He did tell me at the meetup that he was going to be wearing some sort of outlandish costume. Yes. He told me what it was, but I forget already.
Yep, he did. And once that's online, you can take a look at it. But yeah, he definitely wore his outlandish costume.
How did the talk go otherwise?
Good. He did pretty good. He took all of the. I mean, I didn't get to see the LB Hackers one, unfortunately, because I was away at work. But my understanding is that he took all of the input that you guys gave him, to the tune of 4 typed pages.
Yep.
And turned that into a better talk.
Yeah. Danny was quite well done. Danny gave him a ton of feedback. I helped a bit, but Danny was he was just all over it.
Yeah.
So
it came out good.
Cool. Did he manage to fill in the hour? Because the talk he gave at LV Hackers was over in like 10 or 15 minutes.
No, it wasn't an hour. It was more like half hour. I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that's still an improvement
around there. Yeah. Oh yeah. It was good. He did a good job.
I'll have to look it up, and then if you don't mind, maybe we'll include it in the show notes next time around or something.
Yeah, that's fine. It's out there in the public, so.
Yeah. Well, I know you're sketchy about your kids. I don't blame you.
That's fine. He's. We can make it public. That's fine.
All right. Cool. All right. So I don't know what else I've got going on. Been a busy couple of weeks. Nothing really interesting though.
I spent a week in Scotland.
Oh yeah, that is interesting. Good point.
That's right. You were traveling, weren't you?
Yes, I was traveling, and now I'm suffering the consequences. I'm exhausted.
Oh, you're like jet lagged. That's why you're so tired.
I'm guessing it's jet lag. Yeah, I am like trying to stay awake. It's pretty funny.
You should drink more beer. That'll help.
Yeah, I should drink more beer. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I got a picture of Mel. I sent them to all my coworkers. Mel lives in Australia, guys.
That's the what? Wrong part.
wrong part of the world. So it's interesting. So I was the driver. We had to rent a car, so I was the driver. Turns out they drive on the wrong side of the road in that country.
I was gonna say, were you on the right side or the wrong side of the road?
I was on the right side of the. I was on the right side of the car on the wrong side of the road. So the driver sits on the right-hand side. Also, interesting tidbit about, at least Scotland, but I'm guessing other foreign countries. When's the last time you rented a car and it was a manual?
Good point.
He said,
is this why you ended up being the driver?
No, it's apparently it was fortuitous that I did, because the other guys don't.
I don't think I could even imagine driving a manual with the other hand.
The shifter is on
weird.
the left side, or the shifter's on the left side. So the pedals are in the same order that they are in the US.
Okay.
Clutch on the left, brake in the middle, gas on the right.
At least there's that.
Everything else is opposite.
Wow.
The left blinker goes to the right blinker goes to the left.
And the roads are tiny.
And the roads are backwards. They're all backwards.
Oh, I'm surprised I'm not dead. So surprised I'm not dead. But yeah, it was interesting.
I consider myself a pretty good driver, but I think under those circumstances, I may have had trouble.
Yeah, it was not.
That must throw off the whole rhythm.
I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. What's that?
Was a shifting pattern something similar to what you're used to here?
It was the shifting pattern reversed too?
So, well, I mean, if you think about it, I'm using my left hand to shift now. So while the pattern is the same, it's not symmetrical, right? So
was first gear all the way toward your thigh or on the opposite side of the car?
It was on the opposite side of the car.
Mess with you.
No, but that's the thing. So in a car here in the US, if you're shifting, first gear is
top left
towards you and up.
First gear would be towards your thigh and up.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I meant by towards your thigh.
But it's opposite. That would be opposite. It's in the same place it is in the US, but because you're on the opposite side of the car, the shift is opposite. So now you're pushing it away from you and up.
Interesting.
But to make it worse, this particular car
driving style.
For this particular car, and I don't know if it's all the cars over there, but this particular car, reverse was to the left of first gear.
Oh, Subaru does that.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. So, but there's a switch you have to hit. Like there's an extra thing you have to hit on the shifting lever in order to get it over into reverse. That was a little confusing.
My parents had a Renault when we were younger, and it was manual, and it was the same way. Reverse was like first gear was all the way to the left and up, and then reverse you had to pull it down out of first, pull up on a little boot, and push it over further to the left and up, and it was reverse.
Yep. Yeah, that was reverse. And so this thing was an Insignia. I don't know who the hell the manufacturer was. I've never seen the symbol.
It's a Best Buy brand.
Oh, thanks.
It's a Best Buy car.
It was, I think it was a sports, it felt like a sports car. Let's just say I was doing 80 in fourth gear, and this thing had 6 gears.
Wow.
So it was pretty quick.
60 in first, or no, that's 45 in first.
60 in first, man.
I was comfortably doing 80 and didn't realize that, it wasn't like it was taxing the engine or anything.
Oh, well, that's a different story then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could get it up there.
Nope, it wasn't taxing at all. It was a quick little car, really quick little car, but it was fun.
Was it an Opel Insignia? Opel?
I don't know.
You're looking at the same thing I am.
Maybe. I don't know. Let me.
Although Chrome is just totally screwed up for me right now. It must have heard me bad mouthing it earlier in the podcast.
Firefox Quantum still rocking, man.
Yeah,
Opel Insignia, huh?
Every time I try to open up a new tab in Chrome, it freezes my video in the chat.
You're going
podcast. And
what about a new window?
Just totally screwed up.
Yeah, that looks about right. Opel Insignia. That's probably what it was.
Opel.ie.
Is there a picture of the actual?
Oh, but this other window over here where I had the YouTube feed in, that works just fine. It's this one over here doesn't work. Whatever. Thank you, Chrome. Yeah,
that looks right. So it's probably an Opel Insignia. Anyway, that's what it was, and it was quick and it was fun and it was
this looks similar to a high-end American car, or not what a high-end car would be in America, not an American car, but like you were looking at like an Audi or a. Can't think at the moment, but
everybody in Scotland has an Audi.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, they're like VW bugs. They're like these little tiny nothing cars.
Nice.
And everybody has an Audi because they fit on the roads.
Well, yeah, it's funny. It's funny roping in my other passion in life, the Jeep world. Apparently, that's the reason that Jeep has come out with so many tiny little SUVs like the Renegade and the new Cherokee. It's because they're trying to compete in foreign markets.
Really?
And it's like they need small vehicles because the roads are so much smaller in foreign markets.
Makes sense.
Smaller is an understatement. I was we a bus. We had to pass a bus once, and I went off the road.
Up a hill?
No. It's just happened to be a bus on the road, and between not being used to driving on the wrong side of the road and being on the wrong side of the car, and the fact that the bus was really big, I kind of ended up on on the berm on the left. So it was fun.
That's why you should have rented a small SUV, like the Jeep Renegade.
Yeah,
it was made for foreign markets.
Well, then of course when you come to a corner and you look right, you've made a mistake. You need to look left first. Everything is all screwed up. It's
confusing.
We didn't die though. We made it through. We're good.
So. You didn't die. Well, that's good. That's good. So I have to say that I have to say thank you to Dustin for getting me a Woot Stout. I will return the favor at some point.
Ooh, baby.
And if my section on Ansible tonight is incoherent, I blame the Woot Stout. Because it's empty now.
Oh, you drink the whole thing. Nice.
I have a half of this left.
Chug.
Oh hell no! If I chug it, I will fall over. It's only 13%, but it is. This is such a. Usually, when you get a stout that's this high ABV, it's difficult to drink. This goes down nice. It's a very good stout. I mean, you can tell it's stronger than your average stout, but it's very good. Very good.
Glad you enjoy it, sir.
Well, whatever this thing is that I drank, it was good too. So
the thing you can't pronounce?
It's completely in a different language. It's in Belgiumese.
Belgiumese.
Belgiumese. All right, so
wow.
I guess the only thing we could chat about quick is LV Hackers is coming up. Well, I guess we'll have a new show before then. The 4th we'll have a new show. And LV Hackers will be on the 6th of December. So it's coming up 2 weeks, roughly 2 weeks from now. A little over 2 weeks from now. And of course, Thanksgiving here in the U.S. If you are in the U.S.
Indeed.
Eat lots of turkey and pass out when you're done.
I'm probably going to pass out before I start.
Yeah, well,
Turducken. Essent.
Turducken?
Turducken Essent Pigeon at.
What are you talking about? How much have you had to drink, Dustin?
Just a brown ale. Nothing. Very low. I'm just tired. It's a rat
like
stuffed into a pigeon, stuffed into a pheasant, stuffed into a duck, stuffed into a
rat?
chicken, stuffed into a
duck.
Did
you say a rat?
Yes.
Did you start with a rat? You started with a rat.
Rat. Somehow you'd get the rat in the pigeon, or maybe the pigeon in the rat. And then you go to a pheasant, then a duck. Chicken, then a duck, then a turkey.
If you were to start with a mouse, it would probably be easier than a rat.
Yeah, but rats are so plentiful in certain areas of the U.S.
So are mice.
That's true. So are cockroaches.
Plenty. Oh, no, we can't go there.
Crunchy. Anyways, off track again.
All right, I'm going to attempt to talk about Ansible, but first,
I'm going to mute myself. Jason looks tired.
Right. So now I am expected to be coherent enough to talk about a new technology that I only have a slight grasp on. So I know I said we were going to talk about Ansible tonight. I'm going to tell you straight off that I don't know a ton about Ansible. This is more or less an intro to Ansible. We wanted to talk about DCOS, but Dustin failed.
welcome.
Dustin was supposed to talk about DCOS tonight, and instead he's we're going to bring on a friend of his who knows more about DCOS than he does.
We'll make it better.
Maybe next time we record. I guess we'll see. So there will be more about DCOS possibly in 2 weeks, and then I think the show after that is when my coworker Charles is supposed to be on to talk about WordPress, which is not Docker, but whatever. I think we're petering out on the Docker series, mainly because I don't know. The only thing we had left to cover would be something like Rancher, and none of us have any experience with it. Right, Jason? You don't? I see Dustin shaking his head no.
No. I mean, other than using their bug reports to fix problems that aren't Rancher related.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem. So yeah, I don't know if we're going to cover Rancher. If there's anybody out there that does know something about Rancher and you'd like to be on the show, I guess reach out to us. Podcast@ironsysadmin.com. We'll get to Jason and I, not Dustin, because, well, no one emails us, and I never bothered to add him to the list. We can certainly add you, Dustin, if you'd like. All of the horrible spam mail that we get, which is really nothing. That's non-existent.
Recirculate.
Yeah. So anyway, since we don't have anybody with DCOS expertise for the show tonight, I thought we'd talk a little bit about Ansible because it's a recent thing that I've been looking into, and well, it seems pretty cool. So Ansible solves the same problem that other tools have already solved. Tools like Puppet and Chef, which do automation, like configuration management and whatnot. But Ansible does it in a slightly different way. So I thought I would first go into what I know about Ansible, when I first heard about it, stuff like that. What, I don't know, I guess like what they are and how they're involved in the Linux community. So back in, I think it was at 2013 when I went to Summit, I was on the train with my boss at the time, and we were looking at Twitter, I think, people that were announcing things that were going to be at Summit, and there was this thing about this new thing called Ansible, right? And we had no idea what it was, except for the reference to the Ender's Game series, which I'm sure Jason is familiar with. I don't know, Dustin, if you've ever read anything of the Ender's Game series, but basically the Ansible in that series is a method of faster than light communication, right? So even though you may be over great distances, you can communicate quickly, and the book series really uses that to further along the plot. It's pretty cool. But anyway, so we weren't really sure what Ansible was, if it was even related to the book, or a reference to the book or not. But I'm going to say that now that I know a little more about Ansible, it almost has to be. I don't know that for certain. I wanted to talk to someone at Summit and find out, but I never did. So anyway, basically what Ansible is it's, you may say it's the next generation of config management. So fast forward to today, Red Hat is not only interested in Ansible, they've actually purchased the company, I believe anyway. They've purchased the company that created Ansible. The tools that go along with Ansible, like Ansible Tower, they also own. And basically, they're working that into the various tool sets that come along with your Red Hat deployments. Recently, I went to an intro to Ansible class that was hosted by a reseller that we use called MicroStrategies. And I learned a little bit about it. I was already sort of starting to learn Ansible before I ever went to this thing. That was really the reason I went to it, because I wanted sort of a crash course to get me started. So Ansible is sort of a competitor to, like I said, like Puppet and Chef. We currently use Puppet for config management. You can blame the Wootstout. But there's a couple of problems with Puppet, and I'm going to try to outline them before I get into Ansible. First of all, Puppet uses a domain-specific language, which is not quite as easy as I hoped it would be to write things in. There are certain tasks that are very easy to carry out with Puppet. A couple lines of code, and a Puppet master, and you can push, things like package sets or NTP server configurations, or things that are common, things that other people have written, out to all of your systems pretty quickly and pretty easily. One of the downsides to Puppet is that it requires an agent to do these things. So there's actually a service that has to run on all of your machines. You have to make sure that service is running, so you have to monitor it somehow. If it's not running, your config changes don't happen, and you have no way to, you can't make Puppet run Puppet, as far as I know, right? It just doesn't happen that way. You'd have to almost have something else that's enforcing, Puppet running. And then aside from that is this DSL, like I said. The language that you write Puppet modules in isn't terribly complex to someone who's familiar with coding. But if you've got a sysadmin who isn't necessarily a programmer, which there are a lot of sysadmins out there that are not programmers, Puppet is a daunting task. And then on top of that, if you've got more than one person managing your Puppet modules or your Puppet manifests, then you need some way to track those changes. I use something like, or I actually specifically use Git to track my changes. But again, to hand that off to, another sysadmin or even another person on the team at all, whether they're a sysadmin or a web developer or whatever, means you need to make sure that they understand not only Puppet, but they understand Git to make it work in the way that I'm using it. So, there's a couple of issues along that line. There's sort of a learning curve, if you will. Once you get over that hump, sure, anybody can use Puppet, but it means they have to learn the DSL that Puppet uses, and it means they have to learn how to manage code in, like I said in my example, to use Git to manage revisions and whatnot. So all those things are, of course, very possible, but if there was a config management tool that used something much simpler, then that would be even more preferable, right? So Ansible, the tool is written, as far as I know, almost 100% in Python. It also doesn't require an agent. So basically, when it makes changes to your Linux boxes, it's just using SSH. So Ansible can run on any machine that is able to SSH into other boxes, right? There are, of course, downsides to that, and we can discuss that a little bit because I do have actually a couple concerns with how Ansible could possibly be abused. And maybe Jason and even Dustin might have some input on that. But at its base, basically, Ansible is a config engine which runs on one machine. It could be something as simple as your workstation, or it could be a machine that you're dedicating to run your Ansible playbooks from. Speaking of playbooks, right? So there's playbooks and there's roles, right? So roles, from what I can understand, are more like a grouping of playbooks, sort of like you would have with Puppet.
Like
you would have, right? So like with Puppet, you would have manifests that define certain things, like certain tasks that you're running, and then you'd have things like an environment or a host group, or depending on what sort of Puppet master you're using, how you group things together to say this is a web server. This is a mail server. This is a shell server, whatever. So, and roles are things that you can actually, sort of like Puppet modules would be, where you can go to Puppet Forge and get modules. Roles are the same sort of concept. Like I would go to, I believe Ansible calls it the Galaxy. There's a galaxy.ansible.com, sort of like Puppet Forge, where you can go and say, I need to know how to build an Nginx server. And you go there and get the Nginx role for Ansible, and then you can say that thing's an Nginx server, right? So someone has put the work into defining that. Something that I haven't learned yet is how roles are defined, like how they're written. I don't know if that's straight up Python code, or if it's some sort of DSL, or if it's something in between. How do you define a role? Like, how do I define a task that Ansible doesn't already know how to do? So with Puppet, I can write things within Puppet's DSL that will make things happen that other people haven't already tackled, right? I don't know how that works in Ansible yet. Hopefully that's something that I'll learn in the future. It could be that Ansible is just written broadly enough that you can carry out any task that you might want to carry out, but I have trouble believing that that's the case. Ansible also manages Windows boxes, which is something that we're interested in because we have a handful of Windows boxes as well as the multitude of Windows or Linux machines that we have to manage. Now, Puppet does Windows as well, but it's something that we haven't ever actually tried to make happen. Just because, well, we haven't. I don't know. Probably because of the barriers that I mentioned earlier. We just haven't really dealt into the Windows side of it. But Ansible is defined, I should say Ansible playbooks, and I think to some extent roles are defined using YAML, which is a much easier to digest markup language, because that's really all it is. It's not a programming language like Puppet's DSL is. It's really just you define a state in YAML, of course, following the syntax that YAML wants you to follow, and then you can make that stuff happen with Ansible, which is, I think, a pretty big attraction to switching away from a more complicated language like Puppet's DSL into something more simplistic like YAML. Now, the question is, in my mind, whether that limits the functionality of YAML, or not of YAML, but of Ansible, or whether, maybe they've put a lot of thought into all of that and it's not really a problem. The other thing is, like I said, you can run Ansible, that is the provisioner, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the official term is for it, but the thing that I would run to execute tasks in Ansible. Because there's no agent, it's kicked off by the master or by a server, right?
The conductor.
You could say that. You could say that. Yeah. You could say a conductor. But basically, it runs from it could run from your laptop. It could run from your workstation. It could run from a VM that you've dedicated as your machine that you run all of your Ansible playbooks from. But the point is, it's invoked, right? I log into a shell. I run Ansible. I point it at the group of machines that I want to run it on, and I tell it what to run, right?
You can even use it for querying too, right? To understand your resources that are being managed.
Yeah, you can pull data out of things using Ansible as well. Something similar to Factor, where you can get a bunch of facts about servers. Factor is the thing that Puppet uses to get the same thing, to get a bunch of details about a host. So basically, what Ansible always seemed to lack was something similar to the Puppet Master. Right? The Puppet Master in the Puppet world is where all of your modules, all of your manifests, all of your classes live, and then you glue hosts to host groups or hosts to, actions in some way. And then the agent checking in is what makes that all happen. So to solve that comes a thing called Ansible Tower, which is currently, and I believe previously, a product that you have to purchase. It wasn't something that was free and open source that came along with Ansible.
There is a free version.
Well, right. I was just getting to that. Of course, the way that Red Hat does things, they don't like to have software that is closed source. Now, yes, there are one or two exceptions to that, I believe, but I could be wrong. Maybe the things that I'm thinking of do have open source counterparts. But in this case, Ansible Tower has an open source counterpart called AWX, which is like AWS, but with an X. I don't know what it stands for. I haven't looked into it yet. But basically, Tower is somewhat equatable to what you might say a Puppet Master is, or like a Foreman-controlled Puppet Master, or what is it, Puppet Enterprise that Puppet Labs sells to control Puppet with, to control your Puppet Master with. Yep. And this is basically where you can define, what playbooks get assigned to what hosts, or what hosts are in what host groups and whatnot. And you can define schedules as to how often things are pushed out. So as I was getting to before, if I'm invoking Ansible to make things happen on my hosts, that means they're not happening automatically. It means that I'm not defining a state and Ansible is keeping things in that state like Puppet does. That's one of the benefits I find of Puppet. I define a state, and as long as my Puppet agent is running on my clients, it'll keep that state. It'll enforce that state. Everything I've defined in Puppet will stay in that state because the Puppet agent is checking in every so often, and if that stuff drifts, it changes it back. Ansible doesn't do that out of the box without Ansible Tower. So, like I said, Ansible Tower is where you'd basically have a centralized repository of all of your Ansible things and a schedule that's carrying those things out. So, like I said before, that's available per entitlement from Red Hat as Ansible Tower or AWX as their upstream open source version. All right, so that's really like a very quick and dirty rundown of what the heck Ansible is and how things equate to the Puppet world. I don't know, you guys have any comments so far? You both look like you're reading things. Are you reading about Ansible right now so you can have some intelligent responses?
I mean,
guilty as charged. I find it very interesting that they have a Ansible container, and they also, of course, have gotten their hands dirty with the Docker world, with managing Docker and making Ansible-based Docker container. So all the things that if you spent time in defining playbooks for an Ansible for regular servers, you can also do that to create a container. It's interesting.
Yeah. So early on, I forget who I heard this from, but someone had said that Ansible was great for provisioning, while Puppet was great for maintaining state.
I've heard that before, actually, and I never actually looked too much into Ansible, but I've heard other people say that they use both, and it's kind of crazy to think.
I don't know if it's because Ansible has matured or if it's because they were flat out wrong, but it seems like now Red Hat is pushing Ansible as a complete solution for config management.
I bet you're right.
Because of the advent of Tower, I don't know, but
that's what I would think too. I mean, I haven't been in it either, but I would think maybe it's just a maturity thing.
Yeah. So what I'm really hoping is that in the next couple of years, I can start to deploy Ansible in place of Puppet, and that Ansible starts to gain support within Red Hat Satellite in the same way that Puppet currently has it. And from what I'm told from a Red Hat representative that was at the class that I was in, that is coming in, I think, as soon as Satellite 6.4. They said 6.2 is current for Red Hat Satellite, if any Red Hat users are out there. They said that with 6.3, some Ansible support was going to come, but it was more like, he didn't say it was going to be tech preview, but he said that it was going to be limited. And then with 6.4, it's supposed to have the same integrations with Satellite as Puppet has today, which I may have said before that I don't love the way Red Hat has integrated Puppet with Satellite. I think they did it the wrong way. So I'm kind of hoping that it's a little more open when it comes to Ansible, but I guess we'll see how that looks once they roll it out. So yeah, Ansible seems like a cool up and coming technology. The thing with the agentless and SSH connectivity, unless you guys had more comments we want to get into before we went there. Doesn't look that way. So basically, it feels like in order to do passwordless and automated config management, you basically need to have an SSH user, a user on all your machines that Ansible is able to connect as and has full sudo access to your machines. Passwordless. So, I mean, just, run through the possible issues there. So basically,
it depends on what the user has access to as well. I mean, what are they? Do they have their own group? Is it what level of access do they require outside of just being able to access their own executable?
So the way Ansible expects to run is it has access to a user that's not a super user.
Okay.
Right? So it connects over that user, probably over an SSH key pair, right? A passwordless SSH, public and private key that's propagated to all of your machines. But then in order to execute, I'm going to say just about anything that matters, that user is going to have to be able to elevate its permissions, right? Which means the use of sudo.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you're going to let it use sudo, yes, you can lock down sudo so that a user is able to only execute certain commands. But in the case of a config management tool, that's going to get to be a nightmare really quick, I would think. Right? So, yeah, I can tell it that through sudo, it's allowed to run command X. And maybe that's all I need for now. And then in 2 months, when command X won't get the thing done that I need to get done, then it has to run command Y. Now I have to go out to all the machines that it needs to manage and run command Y on and update my sudoers file.
which you can use Ansible to do. Right? I mean,
No.
you technically could probably find a way to do that.
You could, but then if Ansible's managing your sudoers file, then
right.
So if the user that Ansible runs as is also managing your sudoers file, if someone compromises your Ansible user, whatever you've called it, they can just edit the sudoers file and do whatever the hell they want. So
yeah, but that could be arguable too. Even if they don't have access to the sudoers file, just having user access to a server, you talk about all these exploits and user runtime privileges.
I mean, you would lock that down by generating a really ridiculous password for that user, maybe turning off password authentication altogether for your servers, and requiring this thing to use an SSH, a shared key, or I should say a public-private key pair. Of course, if that key is ever compromised, you are screwed. Because they'll have access to everything on your network, right? Now, I'd imagine you could probably have separate users per group or something, like all of my web servers use user X and all of my shell servers use user Y and all of my mail servers use user Z and they all have different keys. But again, like it all comes down to how much of a crazy mess you want to try to manage, right?
True.
So there is apparently a thing called, I think they called it Vault, Ansible Vault, that you can put passwords in. So you could make Ansible, for example, require a sudo password, right? So yeah, user X, which is my Ansible user, has full access to sudo, but it's not passwordless, right? And then Ansible passes along a password from its vault whenever it wants to run a sudo command. The problem is the vault is encrypted, which means that the vault requires a password to unlock. So now your automation requires you to enter a password. So do you programmatically pass in that password? If so, where does that password get stored? Right? See what I mean? It's like turtles all the way down here, right?
If you make it hard enough, I guess, that achieves something, but I think ultimately as it being a management tool, it can totally be abused, just like Puppet.
Yeah, I mean that's the other
access to it.
That's the other trade-off, right? So Puppet runs as root, period, right? So the Puppet agent is running as root. So Puppet protects its client-server connections via exchanged SSL certificates, I believe. It generates an SSL cert, it hands it off to the master, or the master hands it to the client. I forget which way it goes. And then that cert is signed by the master and handed back to the client, and that's how it secures its communication, right? So there's no like SSH key pair per se that it's exchanging, but it's using this signed SSL certificate in order to do the exchange. So I don't know how secure that is as compared to having an SSH sudo capable user on all of your servers, right? I'd imagine that the Puppet agent could be broken into just as well, So I don't know if there's really a trade-off here in security.
You'd have to do pretty thorough comparison.
I mean, so Ansible uses SSH keys for the connection. So one way or there's one way or another, something has to have root access if you're going to let it manage your server.
True.
Yeah. So the fact that this all has to happen passwordless in order for it to be automated is what really makes this a concern to me.
Agreed.
Because you can't have, an admin sitting there typing in a password every time you want to run Ansible if you want it to be automated, because it just doesn't work.
Well, you can, I mean, you'd have to pull it from the vault, and then that you can put the password for the vault in a file somewhere.
Which
you
would
can also do
tower or wherever you're running Ansible from, right? So it does minimize the exposure. And I imagine that if someone broke into your Puppet master, they could wreak havoc on your network the same way as if you could suggest that they might break into your Ansible tower and wreak havoc on your network. That's just the nature of config management.
Right. And it looks like Ansible can be used in pull mode as well. So you can do Ansible pull, and the remote system can phone home instead.
Which brings you back to the whole, that's just as bad as having an agent, really. Not quite. It's more like a cron job instead of an agent.
No, I mean, it's still basically an agent. You're still running software to do that. So
yeah. So I guess it's not without its flaws. I do like the simplicity in its configuration. You know, how you write playbooks and to some extent roles. I do need to look further into how you configure custom things within Ansible. You know, like, what if I can't find a role for that thing that I want to do? What if I can't tell it how to run a Zimbra server? You know what I mean? How do I write that sort of thing, and how complicated is that? And how often do you really have to do that? That sort of thing. But at its base, at face value anyway, it looks like it's a much simpler solution to the thing that Puppet solves. So, shows a lot of promise, and I'm definitely going to look further into it. So I'm hoping that, well, I don't know. I wanted to try to get a hold of the guy who ran the class that I was in and see if he wants to be on the show at some point. He seemed like he might be amenable to that sort of thing. Just because he said he was involved in a number of user groups and whatnot. He seems like the sort of guy who would be interested in sharing his knowledge on something like a little podcast like we run.
Cool.
So if I can ever find his name, because unfortunately I missed his introduction at the beginning of the class. Once I find that, I'll see if I get a hold of him and see if he wants to be on the show. So that could be a future upcoming guest. I guess we'll see. So yeah, that pretty much ties up my my overview of Ansible.
Sorry, I didn't have much to add.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Looks like we're 2 hours into the show anyway, so maybe we'll call it a night.
Indeed.
Okay, so the list of places you can find us is getting longer and longer. I'm just going to say that you can find us on the internet.
No way.
I've started tinkering with WordPress a bit more, and I'm hoping that ironsysadmin.com becomes a WordPress site and we start publishing the show right from there instead of being a subset of my own blog. But that's still got a lot of things to work out. So for the time being, ironsysadmin.com. You can find our episodes there and whatnot. I wanted to give a good shout out to the few Patreon donors that we still have. If anybody wants to send the show some money, you can do so through Patreon, and we appreciate every penny of it. So yeah, that's the big thank you to anybody who's been giving us money through Patreon. I also wanted to mention, so we had some chat about stickers not too long ago. That was before DerbyCon. Remember, there was like, hey, we're getting stickers. Oh, the stickers are terrible. We can't give them out. And then it was, oh, there's a guy who made stickers for me, and Danny's going to get them to me. And then Danny lost them. Well, I did finally get the stickers. And I think Jason also has a pile of them, because the stickers that Danny lost suddenly showed up again.
Yeah, they're here somewhere on my desk.
So I've got a small pile of them. So does Jason. We may go through our Patreon donors over the past several months and just send out some stickers to you guys, because you're awesome for sending us money, and that's cool. Stickers. Hey, look, there's the stickers. Say something, Jason, so that you can be focused.
Focus on me, damn it. Focus on me. See, stickers.
Stickers.
Aren't they
pretty? Stickers. Yeah. So they came out pretty cool. Big thanks to a Jedi Day. His name is Tim. And I've known him through DerbyCon, and he's also very active in various IT communities. So yeah, big thanks to him for printing us some stickers. The artwork that he modified for me, I can probably give out to any other sticker vendor and probably get a good print out of. So we run out, we'll have the ability to make more. And then, of course, all the other places you can find us: YouTube, Twitter, Slack, Facebook. Just find Iron Sysadmin. If you go to ironsysadmin.com/Slack, you can join our Slack team. ironsysadmin.com/YouTube to find us on YouTube. We do broadcast this thing live when we record it every other Monday night. So if you are into that sort of thing, 9:00 p.m. Eastern Time, every other Monday, watch our Twitter feed for more information about when we're going to release episodes and record. And of course, like I mentioned before, Google Play Podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all the places you might find podcasts. I have no idea how we go about getting on Amazon Alexa.
Do we want to be on there?
I don't know, but I know you can listen to podcasts there, and I don't think we're there. That's a problem. Someday.
Is that an Audible thing? Yeah, figure it out later.
I have no idea. I don't know how you get on there.
Alexa, add us to the podcast list.
Okay, Jason, I'm adding you now.
If we say that enough on the show, people who have Alexas may... Yeah, that's how this works. It's a voting system.
Let's gain all the votes to succeed.
All right, guys. I think that's the show for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Digital FX, for tuning in during the YouTube feed. We had a little bit of a chat going on with him. Sometimes we can't pay attention to chat, but when we do, we will be happy to interact with you guys. So come join us on Monday nights. The chat is kind of a lonely place for poor Digital FX. All right, guys. See you in 2 weeks.
Good night, everybody.
All right, I think that's a wrap. Good night, everybody.